Hello again, everybody. Life Scottnick back with you for another edition of Baseball Without Borders, a podcast from the World Baseball Network. Joined by my colleague Matthew Tallerini, and we have just gotten back from the Big 12 and the ACC Conference baseball tournaments as the NCAA baseball tournament gets underway this Friday. But Matt, let's start with the Big 12. You went down to Arlington, Texas. A dramatic finish on Saturday. Oklahoma State first forces another game, beating Texas Tech to get themselves into a win-or-go-home situation to get to the conference championship game. They win the second game of the day with a 5-run comeback in the bottom of the 8th and then a solo home run. But before we get to that and the final game, let's hear about the event as a whole, your thoughts on it, and some of the good players that you saw down there.
Yeah, so the event as a whole was amazing. I mean, it was held in a major league stadium, let alone, I thought that it was great. It was really organized. I mean, the Big 12, did what they had to do to fill like a certain, level proximate of the Rangers Stadium. Obviously, they weren't going to sell out the stadium itself with 40 plus thousand that holds Globe Life Field, but on Saturday and Sunday, pretty much a lot of these games were packed. I'll say like close to like 8 to 10,000 fans from all over the Midwest, preferably in the Texas region. TCU was like right down the road from Arlington, Texas. So it was a big, turnout for TCU to come out to Globe Life, honestly. And it was great just seeing a college baseball tournament in a major league stadium. And I hope for quite some time that they'll keep doing it at the Big 12 conference tournament at Arlington too. So and down at the Texas Rangers site. So pretty much there was a lot of key players. I'll say the one player that stood out for me was a third baseman for TCU. Got a chance to interview him during post game. Also, Bradley. Bradley Taylor. I think that, he's going to be a capable stud. Braden Taylor, sorry. He's going to be, pretty much I think a radar guy to look at. He is a junior currently at TCU, and he just broke the home run record from Royce Hoffman of TCU that played from 1996 to 1999. So he has 46 collegiate career home runs. And he's only a junior. I just find that, pretty much breathtaking that somebody like that can play at such a high level already, let alone. But I think a lot of major league teams down the line are going to look at Taylor. So I think he's one player to look out for, let alone Luke Savage pitched well out of the bullpen for the Horned Frogs during the conference championship game. I think he's one player that, could potentially play at the major league level. And just several other guys too that I think can, see themselves in July, even if they want to sign or committing to being drafted than signing, I'd rather say, if they want to take their steps to a major league organization. But it was a great setting in Arlington, Texas. And it was great to see TCU come out on top, to be honest.
Take us through the game Saturday, Oklahoma State's dramatic comeback, and then the final game on Sunday.
So the comeback of the second game, I mean, the Red Raiders were up 5-0 right out of the gate, pretty much the first few innings. And the Cowboys just came storming back. I mean, I think the 8th inning was really the signature angle of how the Cowboys really distributed of what they wanted to do to just break themselves back into the game. I mean, Bo Sylvester came off the bench to pinch hit for Brennan Holt, and he had a two-run home run that pretty much gave that momentum more of a spark for that part of the game. I think that was key for the Cowboys offense to get things going, and maybe down the line of the regionals this week. So Oklahoma State's hosting their regionals this week in Stillwater. So I think that's going to be key for their offense, of what they did during the Big 12 tournament and see how that carries out, especially with how they played that game against Texas Tech, the second game on Saturday. And Aiden Miola comes up big. I mean, pinch hit solo home run to even send the Cowboys to the Big 12 championship game for the second time in 3 years. Like, that was a signature, swing of momentum that the Cowboys did have going into the championship game against TCU. But yeah, TCU held their own. I mean, like I said before, with Luke Savage, he pitched well during the championship game. He pitched 3 innings of, quality baseball, let alone 4 innings actually, allowing 2 hits, no earned runs, walking 1 batter and striking out 2. I think he was a really big part of that Horned Frogs pitching staff during the course of the week in the Big 12. Yeah, and then Braden Taylor wins the most outstanding player award and gets selected too for the all tournament team. I think he's, like I said a few minutes ago, I think he's capable to run the table and play at the major league level. It's going to take some time, but from what I saw in that tournament, in the conference tournament itself, I think he's honestly going to be a stud down the line if he does want to commit on playing with the Major League Baseball down in the minor leagues, or if he gets drafted and signs out of the draft this year. We'll see. We'll see in the next few weeks.
Yeah, so down in Durham, the ACC championship, couple of notable players that I saw. The first, obviously, Rhett Lauder, probably the top college pitcher going into the draft. And he's been outstanding for Wake Forest this season. He pitched in the Thursday game for the Demon Deacons. Obviously, the tournament format for the ACC is a little different than what you would expect. So there's 4 days of pool play, and every team plays 2 pool play games. But if the top seed in pool play wins the first game, then they get through. If everybody has the same record, the top seed still gets through. So that means that some of those games are not going to be as consequential as you would think. So, like Duke and Miami played a pool play game on Friday that had absolutely no consequences other than a win or a loss on their season record, which is interesting. It is what it is. And, that's just the format that they had selected. Lauder was outstanding in the 10-2 pool play win for the Demon Deacons on Thursday against the Pitt Panthers. Pitt was never really in that game outside of the first inning. He gave up 2 runs in the first, didn't have great command, and then made some changes and started throwing some more change-ups. And all of a sudden, Pitt couldn't touch him, which wasn't particularly surprising. The guy's just a tremendously elite player at that level. He was doing a good job using fastballs and off speed stuff, mixing in some sliders to kind of make it all work against Pitt. And so far for the season, he's got a 1.69 ERA in 95.2 innings. So, I expect him to probably be a top 10 pick in the draft when that comes around next month out in Seattle. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't. There's always, plenty of guys that are in that conversation for the top 10 overall picks, but certainly Lauder's going to be one of them. The MVP of the ACC tournament was Caden Grice of Clemson. He's a big kid. He's a very, very good left-handed pitcher, as we saw in the semifinal game. He throws left-handed and plays first base when he's not on the mound, or will DH for himself when he gets taken out of the game. Threw 7 innings the other day, had 9 RBIs throughout the conference tournament. So he's a guy that, there's going to be a lot of hype on Lauder, but I think Caden Grice is also a guy that could be picked in the top 10. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes higher than where a lot of pre-drafts have him. Talking to a couple of scouts at the hotel, just casually over breakfast, everybody's really impressed with him. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go, certainly in the first round, but I think top 10 in the draft is not out of the question for him. So those are the two most interesting players I saw. And then Billy Amick of Clemson has really come on strong over the second half of the season. He was not a starter at the beginning of the year, but turned it on offensively. He's hitting close to 500 batting average wise over the second half of the college season. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does through the NCAA tournament. And over the summer, I would imagine he's going to go play wood bat somewhere because he's a sophomore. Still got a little time left until he plays. Can go into the draft or what have you. But he did famously homer off of the bull sign in left field. I asked him if he got
Uh-oh.
his free steak, and he just smiled and said, "No, but that would be nice if I did."
That's interesting. I mean, like the bull sign, and you actually walked past the old stadium by your hotel. So I guess was that bull sign still standing there? Did they ever bring
So
that over to
the
the new
the hit bull win
stadium?
steak sign that you see in the movie Bull Durham was actually put there by the movie producers. It was not there originally, although Durham for a long time has been called, the minor league teams traditionally been called the Bulls. There's bull imagery all over the city. So there's now a new hit bull win steak sign, and the bull is standing on grass on the sign, and the sign says "Hit bull win steak, hit grass win salad." And that's above the left field wall there at the new Durham Bulls Athletic Park. But yeah, it was neat to walk by the old Durham Athletic Park, which baseball was played on that site. I think starting in the 19 teens, around World War One, and the grandstand that you see in the movie Bull Durham and the grandstand that's still there was built in the late 30s. I actually went to a game there years ago when the Bulls were in the Carolina League as the affiliate of the Atlanta Braves. And it was just an awesome little ballpark, just a real slice of baseball history in a small town in the South. And Durham is not really that small town in the South anymore, right? Like it used to be a town where the tobacco industry was kind of the big thing. It was a railroad junction, and now part of the greater Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. The Research Triangle, as it's called down there. There's a lot of high tech business. There's a lot of big law firms and stuff like that with offices in downtown Durham. So it's not the sleepy little southern town it was. They've been in AAA now for 25 years, going back to 1998 when they became the Tampa Bay Rays AAA affiliate, which I think had kind of always been the goal when they built the new Durham Bulls Athletic Park. But the fact that the old ballpark is still there and still used by North Carolina Central University, which is an HBCU there in Durham,
Mhm.
I think it's just fantastic. And if you're ever down there, you've got to go see it because it's absolutely worth the trip, especially if you've seen the movie Bull Durham and you love it as much as I do. You've got to go.
Oh, 100%. Definitely worth taking a trip down there. And then this week, I mean, we have a great schedule lined up for top-notch Division One, baseball. I mean, all the regionals were announced on Sunday. So, Auburn regional, that's going to be very interesting. You have Southern Miss, Sanford. Southern Miss is 41 and 17. Sanford is 36 and 23. That's going to be one of the first games of regionals at 2 p.m. On Friday. So all the Friday regionals are going to be structured during that time frame. And game two of the Auburn regional will be Auburn 13 and 32 and 14. Auburn was 34, 21 and 1 during the SEC. So first tip end of everybody playing in the field of 64 starts Friday. All games are going to be streamed on ESPN Plus, all the other ESPN family networks, ESPNU and ESPN2 to start off the tournament. And if you have Longhorn Network, I think that's going to be easier to watch the Longhorns. I just saw a lot of the other schedules, and the ACC network too will be in the bridge for the ESPN schedule alignment. So that's the first eyes that I'm seeing off that regionals in Auburn. Life, what regional catches your eyes if we want to go down the list?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a very good one to watch is going to be Winston-Salem because you're going to see Brett Lauder pitch again. That one, of course, being hosted by 47-10 Wake Forest. And they're going to play George Mason in the first
Mhm.
game. Maryland and Northeastern are playing the other game in that one. I had thought we were going to see Boston College host a regional. Unfortunately, they fell out of that, by not making it through to the semifinals of the ACC tournament. Probably took that away. So they're going down to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to the regional hosted by Alabama. 40-19 Alabama going to play Nicholls State. They're 34-22. Nicholls State, of course, I believe it's in Lake Charles, Louisiana. So a fairly easy drive for them. Boston College is going to play Troy. Um, and then elsewhere, Indiana and the subject of my long form story from last week, Ben Seiler, they're going to be playing in the Lexington Regional. Kentucky hosting that one. They're going to play. Kentucky's going to play Ball State. Both teams with 36 wins there. Kentucky 36-18. Ball State's 36-21. And then West Virginia plays Indiana. Indiana's 41-18. West Virginia 39-18. Indiana kind of had a tough road to hoe in the Big Ten tournament. They lost to Iowa and then lost to Michigan to get bounced out. Both very good teams, but I think Indiana could advance out of that regional and onto a super regional. And anything could happen in these games. I mean, it was only 10 years ago that Stony Brook went to Baton Rouge and knocked off LSU at Alex Box Stadium in the regional. So you never know what's going to happen in this. It's as
Oh
much
yeah,
or
definitely.
more
I
of a
mean, look
toss
at the
up than the
Coral Gables
NCAA
region
basketball
too. I
tournament
mean,
at times.
outside of Texas, Louisiana, to State University. I mean, University of Maine, they're 32-19, but I mean, we could see like a Cinderella team run the table during this tournament. I just think that there's no question out that anybody can, adjust with, I mean, like the pitching they've seen throughout the years. Even the lower conference teams that play from like, have played early scrimmages in late January and early February against top-notch Division 1 programs. So I don't see like how certain adjustments can't be made with the schools like Ball State, Eastern Illinois, University of Maine, like I said just now. Maybe Tulane. Tulane is 19-40. So I find this amazing that Tulane won the American Athletic Conference and that they had to sneak in with an automatic bid. Otherwise, there was not going to be more baseball extended for the Tulane program. And I think it's fascinating that you do have two teams squaring off in Baton Rouge in, the southeastern Louisiana area the first game. So like LSU, who's been number one for pretty much the whole season except the last few weeks, at 40-3-15, gets to face Tulane that's 19-40 that had to get into the field with an automatic bid. I mean, that was the only way they were going to go about this. And even what I saw with Kansas, they didn't have a good year too, but they showed up in the Big 12 tournament, even beating Texas. I mean, during that span to knock them out. I think that was, a big highlight for, that type of program that could reach, multiple NCAA tournaments down the line. I mean, for what they have at cusp. So, yeah, I mean, college baseball, it's the beauty of seeing these Cinderella teams that could make noise, and you just never know. I mean, we'll probably see a school like Cal State Fullerton probably hoist, the national championship title in Omaha during the month span. So that's the beauty of it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, to watch that Tulane East Carolina game in the AAC championship, it was on in the press box because obviously we were rain delayed on Sunday, but you know Tulane did something really astonishing to win that tournament because they have no business being in the NCAA tournament with that record. But you never know what can
Mhm.
happen. I don't hold out great hope for them going up against LSU right away, but we'll see what happens, and it'll certainly be interesting. Um, Earlier
Yeah,
this month,
so
the
during March
dates for the Caribbean
18th, we
series have
had a
been
segment
announced. You
on
want
our
to take us
last
through those, Matt?
podcast about two possible invitees coming back to the Caribbean series, Colombia and Panama. The Caribbean Baseball Professional Confederation really had to hold certain press conferences in Nicaragua, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic during this month and a half span to pretty much brand of what they're going to give a facelift in Miami. And I think it's been a great angle that the Marlins have stepped in to help. Obviously, they're going to be the host tenants during the February event, and also doing this after the World Baseball Classic. Is kind of giving that momentum push for what they really want to expect out of Miami. So they stated the official dates. So be embraced that these dates will shy off the day of Super Bowl Sunday. February 2nd to February 10th will be the championship game held at Lone Depot Park in Miami, which is the night before the Super Bowl, the first time in Las Vegas. So I think you have this crossover scheduling alignment that, it's never been done that the Caribbean Series final ends the day before the Super Bowl. It was either always like 2 days, or with it being like a 6-team tournament in its recent years, it always ended, like 2 to 3 days prior to Super Bowl Sunday. So I think it is going to be interesting if they want to give this more of a media presence of how you have Super Bowl, Sunday in the mix of this week. How does the course of, the international baseball fandemonium angle really align, with fans coming out to the park? And I think it's going to be a big turnout, just like how it was in the World Baseball Classic. What are your thoughts, Life?
Yeah, I've told everybody that has asked me about the World Baseball Classic this year in Miami that it was some of the most fun I've ever had at a ballpark and one of the great fan experiences that I've ever been a part of. Obviously, we didn't have credentials, so we were sitting in the stands. But I thought it was one of the most fun things I've ever done, and a truly multicultural experience, as I've said on this podcast before. Um, and I think it's going to be even better, honestly, at the Caribbean series because I think you're going to see more fans from the Latin diaspora around Miami. And there are people that live in the Miami area from all those countries, from Cuba, from what granted Cuba's not going to be in the Caribbean series this year, but Cuban Americans love their baseball nonetheless. Puerto Rico, Venezuela, people from these countries are going to come out to root for their team, especially if the champion of those leagues is their hometown team. A lot of the Venezuelans are going to come out to root for whichever team's representing Venezuela, and Puerto Rico, same thing. And Mexico, it's a little more travel from Mexico to get to Miami for the Mexican fans, but there are plenty of Mexican fans down there, and I think we'll see some there. There's a big Nicaraguan community. When I tell people, when they ask me what it was like at the World Baseball Classic, one of the first things I tell them is how we pulled into the parking lot at 9:45 in the morning, and our friend Mike Miranda Souza was handing us a Tona, a beer from Nicaragua, and how much fun that was. Just being around these people that truly love their
Mhm.
countries and their baseball, and being a part of this big event. So I think come February, I think it's going to be great. I think you're going to see 25 to 35,000 people in the park every night. I'd be surprised if it didn't sell out completely. And I think it's just going to be a great event. And people that live in the Miami area that maybe aren't familiar with this really need to check it out because, the Caribbean, is it Major League Baseball? No. But is it good baseball? Is it entertaining? Absolutely. And I think if you love baseball,
Yeah,
you got to go out and
and
check
by
this
the
out if
time
you
of the
can get
winter
down
league
there because it's
starting
going to be
up, a
fantastic.
lot of the winter leagues will start during the middle of October during the MLB postseason, and World Baseball Network will provide a lot of the scheduling alignments for the Caribbean winter leagues, and we'll keep you notified on where to stream those games at the palm of your hands. Also, YouTube, Facebook, preferably will be the links of how you can get a lot of those games. So yeah, we'll keep you informed of what's going on and what lies ahead for this upcoming Winter League season in the Caribbean and Australia. So go check us out on our article confinement on worldbaseball.com to keep up to date on the Winter Leagues from this upcoming year. So yeah, it's going to be cool next year in Miami during that course of the weekend. And life, we had some interesting performances in Major League Baseball over the weekend. What really stood out to you of what you saw in Major League Baseball?
Well, I was kind of tied up watching a lot of ACC stuff, but I wasn't surprised. Put it this way: I think the least surprising thing that happened over the weekend was the Mets designating Gary Sanchez for assignment, which I was not at all surprised about. Gary Sanchez, like Ebby Calvin LaLouche couldn't hit
Mhm.
water if he fell out of a boat, as Kevin Costner says in the movie Bull Durham right now. But I was very surprised that the Padres picked him up. Um, I guess with a guy like Gary Sanchez, he did make two All Star games, and he did have a very, very good first season in the major leagues. And I guess that you know he's only 30. He's probably got a couple years left. He's never really dealt with any big injuries. So I've got to figure that San Diego figures that there's something left there. But he played in 3 games with the Mets, struck out 3 times, and had 1 hit in 6 at bats. He was kind of a stopgap for the Mets because they were waiting for Alvarez to get all the way healthy and Tomas Nido to come back. But I wasn't expecting much of him. He hasn't batted over 210 since 2019. Um, but he's going to keep getting shots because he's capable of playing behind the plate at the major league level, at least in a backup or a spot capacity. So, I feel bad for the guy. If 2016, if I had had a vote for AL Rookie of the Year that year, I would have voted for. I would have given him the top vote because if you look at his numbers that year and the numbers that Willie McCovey put up the year Willie McCovey won the NL Rookie of the Year, the numbers are almost identical. And honestly, McCovey was a great player, obviously a Hall of Famer, but he was primarily playing first base. A lot harder to play catcher as a rookie in the major leagues and put up those great numbers. So 1959, McCovey wins the Rookie of the Year, batted 354 with an OBP of 429, 656 slugging, 1.085 OPS. Um, Sanchez numbers weren't exactly there. He hit 299, 376, 657 with a 1.032 OPS. So a little bit below where McCovey was. But McCovey had 13 home runs and 38 RBIs in 52 games. Sanchez had 20 home runs and 42 RBIs in 53 games. So, in that regard, I saw that as a comparable performance. I think he really merited the consideration he got, and he did finish second in the Rookie of the Year balloting that year, behind Michael Fulmer. But he just the last few years he really fell off, and I don't know what to attribute that to, but I guess he's going to probably end up in El Paso with the AAA affiliate where my buddy Tim Haggerty's the broadcaster. And hopefully, if he can get his career back on track, figure out how to swing the bat again, maybe we'll see him again in the major leagues. But I don't think we're going to see him in the major leagues for
Yeah,
much
no,
more
I
than
mean, well,
a
yeah, I
few
don't
games
think we're
here
going
and
to
there the
see
rest of
Gary
the
Sanchez
season.
in a major league uniform, honestly, but I think he'll run the course of being in the minor leagues this year. And I mean, Will Myers is just going to fill up good innings if he's not hurt, obviously, or if he's not playing banged up. I think the Padres will have to assess on a lot of coordinates of what they want to do at the catching position down the line, especially what lies ahead before the All-Star break. But yeah, speaking of Willie McCovey, Pittsburgh's Jack Sawinski hit 2 home runs into McCovey Cove yesterday on Memorial Day. That hasn't been done since Barry Bonds hit 2 home runs into McCovey Cove on May 18th of 2002. Um, I mean, McCovey Cove, you have to really barrel into the baseball as a left-handed batter, especially to hit one into the water in AT&T Park. And Sawinski just did that yesterday, and I think the Pirates too. They could have an offensive angle really, if they really want to see October. I think this year and just get hot at the right time. I mean, O'Neal Cruz, Jack Sawinski, like I said before. I think certain key guys for the Pittsburgh Pirates, they can be an interesting part this year of what lies ahead. Um, and I think Rich Hill, is he back to his form? Like that's what I want to know of what they see in the starting rotation of adding Rich Hill to the roster. I think that's going to be a huge alignment with the Pirates. What are your thoughts on what shapes up for the Pittsburgh Pirates life?
Yeah, I mean, I love the ballpark in Pittsburgh, and Pirates fans are great, and they've had to put up with a lot since 1992, which was the last time that the Buccos made it to the NLCS. As for Rich Hill, I can tell you why the Buccos signed him, because they're only paying him $8 million, which is comparatively little for a major league pitcher with his level of experience. Um, and he's still effective. He's got an ERA of 4.33 this year, which doesn't sound overwhelming, but it's competent. His ERA plus is 110, which means that, or pardon me, his ERA plus is 93, which means he's right around average for the major leagues at 4.33. Um, Fielding independent pitching, not great, but he's doing okay. Um, he's effective. Is he going to light it up? Is he going to win a Cy Young? No.
Yeah.
But he's effective for the Pirates, and that's what they need him to be. The Pirates are never going to go out and spend the money, as long as Bob Nutting owns the team, on free agents or even retaining free agents. That they signed Brian Reynolds to the contract that they did, honestly, was shocking to me, because I thought for sure they were just going to trade him, or let him trade him at the deadline, or let him walk, and they may yet do that. I know he has a movement clause in the new contract, but there are still ways to get around that. So we'll see what happens. I just think that the the major league baseball in and of itself doesn't do enough to force owners to be competitive, and the way that the Pirates sit around and collect revenue sharing money, um, they do it and it's within the rules, but it certainly doesn't benefit their fans, and it doesn't benefit the product on the field for Major League Baseball. And so I'd like to see Major League Baseball require owners to use revenue sharing money to improve their lineups, and I'd like to see the Pittsburgh Pirates, commit to being competitive instead
Yeah, I
of
mean,
commit to
like, look at
merely
Mitch Keller
showing up
now,
with
like six and
28 guys to
one,
play baseball every day.
3.01 earned run average. He started in 11 games as of now this year, has pitched through 68 2/3 innings, 85 strikeouts, 1.02 whip. I think if Mitch Keller produces those numbers in a different organization like purpose, I think he can be a Cy Young. I think, let alone of what he has of his mechanics, that he is fit for a market in Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, New York. But the Pirates hung around with him since 2014 when he was drafted in the second round as a 64th overall pick. So, I mean, like, does Mitch Keller really want to sit in Pittsburgh for as long as time? I mean, yet this is his first above 500 season pitching. So he was 5-12 last year with a 3.91 ERA. He was 5-11 in 2021 with a 6.17 ERA. He has proved dramatically this season. I wonder, like, if a lot of stuff during pitchers and catchers in spring training helped him through the course of where he is this year, or probably just the groove he's in. I think that he can be an all-star this year, but I just think with the numbers he's pulling up, if he does that somewhere else, he's in the discussion to be tiered on a Cy Young discussion. Honestly, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Keller is an example of that financial
Hmm.
playbook that the Pirates run, right? I mean, they drafted him in the second round, they developed him, they have him under team control until 2026, and this year he's pretty
Hmm.
much lights out on the mound, and for that.